How you feeling? I mean, you're finally back, which is awesome. But how are you feeling these days?
Feel good, just like before I left. I mean, there's a little pain from the obvious exposure and stuff, but other than that, it feels back to day to day.
Let's just kind of start with the obvious. I mean, tell me about the trip in the first place. I mean, what was the plan going into it? You know, how excited were you? All that stuff.
I mean, we've been looking forward to it for a few months. Gary was lucky enough to get a few permits, which are fairly hard to get. And then he was even luckier to get an overnight permit to stay at the trail camp, which played kind of a role in like how things went down and the deciding factors of what on how the day went. So the trip itself was great. We flew in to LA, drove out to Mount Whitney, stayed the night at what was that?
Whitney Portal.
Yeah, Whitney Portal Campground. Great night. Built a little fire, had a good meal, a glass of whiskey. Everything was great. Woke up the next morning about 3 a.m. and then just started hiking. The hike was going great. We got to trail camp, which is kind of where most folks they either stay the night there before summiting, or they kind of drop their heavier pack and get up and downgrade to a lighter pack and hit the summit. So that's pretty much what we did. We got to trail camp probably around 10, yeah, about 10 a.m. Dropped our heavy packs, had a snack, and we kind of went on the decision from there that the weather that next morning on Friday was going to be pretty rough. So it was either we summit that day, which we had plenty of time to do, or kind of stay the night and just enjoy the day there. So we decided to go ahead and summit since the weather was good. So we had our snack and started heading up. So from trail camp up, there is what's called the 99 switchbacks, which is essentially just back and forth. Yeah, 99 times. It's pretty simple on what it is. So we did. I was getting pretty winded just by the nature of the beast. So we got up to the ridge. From what I remember, there was a sign that said 1.9 miles to summit, which was another factor in how things happen. So we started walking the ridge line. We got about a little over a mile into it, to the point where we could pretty much see the summit, but it was still a ways off. Just due to my conditioning versus Gary's, who's in much better shape, I pretty much told him, I'd been telling him all day, like, hey, just go ahead and get to summit. I'll meet you there. And the deciding factor in that, on my viewpoint, is we've had similar training. I was completely coherent. I knew what I was doing, and it was an easy trail. The conditions aren't easy, but the trail itself was clearly marked. There were plenty of people out that were walking back and forth. So I felt completely safe in the deciding factor of, hey, you go ahead and summit, I'll summit, and we'll meet back pretty much at that sign where the switchbacks. So we broke up, we separated. I could see him, he summited. It was taking me a little longer on his way back down. We met up again, and we talked. He pointed out that there was a storm coming on another mountain range, and we had a brief discussion, and he was like, hey, if you're going to do it, go straight up, come straight back down. So I went ahead and summited. Spent about 15 or 20 minutes from what I can remember. Took a few pictures. I saw a few other guys. I think they were with a firefighter crew, but they were coming from the mountaineering side, which is the west side of Mount Whitney. And so they ended up taking a picture of me up there, I guess, which is what helped get a timestamp on when the last time I was seen. So after that, I started coming back down. Everything was fine. I was on trail, and for the first half hour or so, I knew exactly where I was going. And then AMS kicked in from there, and things started getting a little delirious. And on the trail, you can stay on the west side, which is like the most traveled route by backpackers or day packers, or there's a little spot where you can veer right and start going down the mountaineering side, which is the Muir Trail, I believe. John Muir Trail.
Yeah, that's that goes to the west. The east goes back to the trail where we needed to go.
Yeah. So I veered towards the John Muir Trail, from which point, after AMS kicks in, it gets a little weird in the head from there. And so from that point, I don't remember much of anything. A scenario played out in my head for a couple of days, to where when I was found on the fourth day on Sunday, I thought I had been out there for 23 days and not the couple of days. So on that fourth day, the scenario that had played in my head pretty much told me I needed to go up and down and up and down. So I had gone up to another ridge line that was, after looking at a map, it was about 1,500, 2,000 feet. And from there I saw a lake that I knew I needed to get to. It was an open area, and there was fresh water, and that was the spot that I had to be at. But I didn't have enough energy to, kind of scope out where I needed or how to find a better way down. So I decided to just slide down. So I laid on my back and slid down, the 1,500 feet, got to the open area, started getting fresh water. And by that point, I was completely cognizant of what was happening. Never really panicked. I just knew that I needed to start finding shelters, how to get continuous fresh water and stuff like that. So from there, I put a little SOS out. Wasn't the greatest, but I went and got fresh water, started scoping things out, and then just put myself in the most open area that I could. Luckily, as I was kind of wandering around, I was just screaming, out for help, and luckily a couple kind of heard me, and there was ground rescue teams that were out there, and they were stopping everybody on the trail. And luckily one of the ground rescue guys ran across that couple, and they said they thought they had heard something, and around 5 o'clock or so, he came on me and yelled my name and took care of me from there. And they picked me up and flew me to Fresno and started the recovery process.
Wow. That's harrowing. Sure. That's I don't know. It's a lot to take in. What's next? I mean, with the recovery and everything, you were in Fresno for a few days. You went down to San Antonio for a few days.
Yeah. So I went to San Antonio to BAMC on Monday, and spoke with the ortho team and the burn team, and they've been great so far. I speak with the hand and feet specialist on Monday, and then from there I think they're going to come up with a plan on, what gets to stay, what my options are, and stuff like that. So it's going to be a few months recovery, but outside of that, I think my day life will get back to normal pretty soon.
how often have you hiked before? I mean, doing a hike like that, it's not like it's your first time or anything.
Yeah, that was, I mean, Mount Whitney being the highest in the Continental. I had never done anything like that. I had done Quandary Peak in Colorado a few weeks prior. Didn't experience anything like that. I felt fine. We went up, came back down. In similar conditions, snow, wind, it was, and no issues at all. And so I didn't see going up Mount Whitney bringing on those sort of conditions either. So between Quandary, I've done Pikes Peak. Unfortunately, I haven't gotten to the top because of conditions, but I've done several pretty decent hikes and never experienced something like that. So, it's just unfortunate.
This is going to sound like a weird question to ask, but once recovery is, and once you're kind of back on track to your normal day-to-day life, is hiking going to be an option in the future for you?
I think so. As long as I can walk, which I don't foresee me not being able to, it's not something I'm gonna stop doing, and it's not an ignorance thing. It's just something I enjoy. So I don't, obviously I'll be much more cautious in going up something like that, but definitely gonna continue to pursue it.
And like I've asked in the very beginning, in terms of how you're feeling, what are the injuries that you're still dealing with right now?
So I have pretty severe frostbite on my toes and fingers. That's not really bringing any pain as of yet. It's mainly the road rash on the backside. But I mean, luckily that's the part that's going to heal the fastest, and it's significantly healed from then to now. It would probably take me 20-ish minutes to get out of bed and into a seat about a week ago. To now I can hop out of bed. I mean, I still feel a little pain, but walking, sitting, just doing normal things.
That's great. What am I missing about, the trip? Is it, kind of when you were coming back, what were those conversations like? Tell me about, talking to Meredith, or, being able to talk to your mom for, after those days.
It was the same. I mean, I just picked back up where I left off. I know there was a lot going on the backside during the whole event. And, I was being they were filling me in on everything. And, as far as my personality or anything like it, nothing had changed. It's just, I don't really know how to describe, but there was a lot that everybody had done that I hadn't expected, and that was a lot to take in, was just the effort and the amount of people that kind of saw my story, and how many people had reached out and were thinking about me and all that. I didn't even know I knew that many people, and it was very eye-opening, and it was, I don't know how to explain that.
That's really the questions that I have for you, okay. Honestly. Is there anything that you think is important to add? Is there any advice that you would give to other hikers for Mount Whitney, or anyone who's trying to do those trails?
Advice would be definitely listen to the signs a little more. I think a key thing that played into mine was a little overconfidence. I've been in the Army about 15 years, and I've been fortunate enough to go to some pretty good schools that teach you a lot of great things about really how to avoid this. But you know, when you're going, you kind of get a little fixated, and I take a lot of responsibility on. I got fixated, and there were signs that I could have stopped and listened to before the AMS had set in. So really, just the overconfidence in your abilities to just go ahead and take that 10 minutes and assess yourself and say, hey, it's not worth it today, or I can do it. What do I need to do to make sure that this won't set in? Because, I mean, you hear about it and they teach you about it, but when it sets in, there's nothing you can do from that point. So really just being aware of what's happening in your surroundings.
Now that you're back home and you're on this path to recovery, like you said, you're making great strides. What are you most looking forward to?
Really just getting back to normal. I mean, not really sure what normal is going to look like. I mean, but
what is normal for you?
Normal is going to work and just doing activities. I mean, just going on little hikes or going on little day trips to San Antonio, or, you know, it's nothing too crazy. A couple times a year, you go for a hike, or you do, you know, something a little adventurous, and then you just live your day-to-day life. I've never had social media, but I have been hearing that there's been, you know, folks online that have had their inputs on how things happened. But it is important to me for folks to know that you can't really armchair quarterback the decision that we made. I think we made a very thought out, and, you know, we discussed everything along the way on the decision on how we were going to summit. And it was two individuals that are pretty well trained on how that was going to happen. So the stuff that we are seeing and hearing online, that, you know, should we have split, should we have not have split, I am confident in the decision that we made. And looking back, I would still make that same decision. And, you know, unfortunately, things happen the way they happen. But, you know, from that point on, if, you know, Gary hadn't acted the way he acted, there's no way I would be here. The amount of effort that he put in to get the call out, in the response that was needed to get everything going, a normal person, it would have taken, you know, another day for that to have happened, and as opposed to hours. So I'm extremely grateful for that. And then all the efforts that the Sequoia National Parks and the rescues, and I don't remember the other, Inyo County. It was amazing. Like, after hearing everything when I came to you, it was very amazing. So that's pretty much it.
Yeah, like the AMS really is kind of what made all this happen the way it did. It sounds like. Yeah.
Yeah, we were 100% confident in our plan, but, you know, I could have very easily just been out there on my own to begin with, and, you know, the same scenario could have played out. So luckily, you know, Gary was there to take action and get the rescue started.
Yeah.
So
cool.
that's it.
I'm set.
All right.